This 5+11 model, 5 auto bids for the 4 power conferences, plus a group of 6, and then 11 at-large spots is really gaining steam. And the Big 12 has been unified behind this. It's a bad thing in some ways for the Big 12, so why would they be pushing it? Let's dive in. And how big is the impact that the Big 12 seems to be making right now? Lots of quotes, lots of tweets coming out today from people. It still seems to be like SEC spring meetings. There's been this slow trickle of information coming out there and quotes coming out of there, many of which are very, very whiny. The Big 12, it's been a much different tone. It's been this unified front. Clearly, everybody is behind, hey, we want to push for the 5+11 model, which you could better brand this thing as the earn it model. This is the earn it college football playoff model, saying we are not going to do this auto bid stuff. We are not going to just do this as an invitational. We are not going to just award every single year certain slots to certain conferences. We don't need that. What we need is we need you to earn this, okay? You need to earn your way in. So here's one tweet today. Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark told me today his league not only approves of a 5+11 model, it presented, not only approves of a 5+11 model, it presented it. So the Big 12 presented it when the Power 4 commissioners met recently in Charlotte. So the Big 12 has been behind this. It is pushing it, the 5+11 model. Quote from Brett Yormark, "It has always been our first choice. It's fair and rewards on-field performance. Always been our first choice. The Big 12 is the one that presented this when Power 4 commissioners met recently in Charlotte. So don't get it twisted. The Big 12 is behind this. The Big 12 really wants to push this 5+11 at-large model in the college football playoff. Now, there's also a part of this Brett Yormark quote where he said, I'm not surprised SEC coaches like it, which is interesting there. The SEC at large would prefer the 4 auto bids because it allows them to unlock all those different things. 9-game conference schedule, scheduling agreement with the Big Ten, extra play-in games at the end of the year to go along with a conference championship game. All of that stuff, which helps them with money. And that's, from an administrative standpoint, that's what like your athletic directors are going to be thinking of. Like, we need the money to make this happen. But it is interesting to say, hey, the coaches may actually prefer this 11 at-large thing. And I would think you would. Like, this is the weird part about this battle. I can explain it to you, and I just did, like why the Big 12 is pushing for 5+11 and why the SEC is pushing for the other one. But it is like this twisted inverse reality of what you would think on the surface makes sense more for each league. Because the Big 12, I mean, look, guys, this contract going until the early 2030s, like the next 6 years, the Big 12 will not get 12 total teams in the college football playoff over the next 6 years, with this being the rule, this being how it is decided. That just will not happen. The 4-4-2-2-1, the Big 12 would get 12 teams. That is a guarantee. Probably not anymore, but they would get 12 teams. So why would the Big 12 be pushing for the one where they get fewer? Well, it's because the Big 12 doesn't want to codify. They don't want to sign on the dotted line, solidify that they are literally half of the Big Ten and the SEC. That's a big part. They're also, I think, doing this a bit in an altruistic sense for the greater good of the game. Don't want to see the game turn into something where we are acquiescing to the Big Ten and SEC being able to start tipping the dominoes down where they just solidify their monopoly that they have over everything. A lot of reasons not to do it, but it is weird. Meanwhile, the SEC, like, hey, 5+11, the more at-large spots there are, the better it is going to be for the SEC and the Big Ten, but particularly the SEC. I know they can whine all they want about what happened last year, but that is the one time in the history of the playoff and really in the history of any kind of postseason system that the sport has had in the last 20 years that it has not overwhelmingly benefited the SEC. They're generally going to do better with more at-larges. So why are they fighting against it? Well, like I said, they want a guarantee of how many spots they have so they can do all these other things that they believe will make them more money. It's a very weird state that we are in right now, but that is the reality. Here's another quote from Brett Yormark. This was to The Athletic. He said, quote, I don't think 4-4-2-2 is fair. I just don't think that model speaks to who we are as a conference and what we mean to college football. Now, interesting quote. That to me is kind of like a PR sort of quote, because he is saying, like, I don't think us signing up to be half of the Big Ten and SEC is like what we are as a conference. But if you're talking about just sheer how many bids you would get in the playoff every single year, I mean, again, that I think is a pretty good deal. But you can't say that. If you're Brett Yormark, you got to position yourself as like, we're going to fight, man. We're going to fight for being worth more than that and trying to aspirationally get to a level where we are better than just that, better than just being a conference that gets 2 teams in because we are half of those other leagues. When I say that everybody in the Big 12 seems to be very unified, here is what I mean. Here's a quote from Mark Harlan. Okay, now remember, guys, who is Mark Harlan? Mark Harlan is the athletic director at Utah. What do we know about Utah? Utah has been very prickly about where they sit in the Big 12. There have been a lot of issues, okay, between Big 12 fans and Utah fans and how they feel about being in this conference. There have also been issues between Mark Harlan publicly slamming the Big 12 like he did after the BYU football game last year. He said, like, we were happy about being in this conference. We are not now. I'm paraphrasing. It was something to that effect. This is the guy, Mark Harlan, Utah athletic director Mark Harlan. He's on board with preaching one consistent narrative here. He says, quote, I think the public and we agree that you have to win this thing on the field. So Brett Yormark has his ducks in a row, man. He's got the athletic directors even down to the one that has been a little difficult to corral and sometimes unruly. He's got that guy on message. That's good work. That's good work. As a PR professional, let me tell you, Mr. Yormark, that is good work. Here's Brett Yormark's philosophy on why. He expands a little bit more on this. Quote, and that's okay because we've got to earn it on the field. I often tell my room, you're rewarded when you perform at the highest levels. We are investing at a high level in this conference, and we'll continue to invest. I'm willing to earn it on the field, and so are my coaches and ADs. So he's basically saying, like, guys, putting this out there is better for us because aspirationally now it means, like, we've got to go. We can't just rest on, hey, we're going to get 2 bids. We got to go get them. We got to go invest in this sport as much as invest in, well, yeah, this sports in general, invest in it all as much as we can. Whether that means, hey, you guys need to be open to private equity and private capital because, oh, by the way, Ross Dellinger has reported the SEC is teaming up with Goldman Sachs. So, yeah, we better figure something out if we're going to remain competitive there. I better get some buy-in from you guys on that. Or if we're going to go to the Jamie Pollard comments from the other day, Iowa State's athletic director, who said, like, we've got to either be subsidized by the university or have students pay a fee, or we're going to be Northern Iowa. Well, universities, maybe pay attention here. You're probably going to have to help subsidize some of these schools a little bit to continue paying rev share at the highest level to remain competitive here. To me, that's some of what this is about as well. It's like taking away the safety net from behind you. You're going to have to go earn more bids other than just the one if you want to be respected as a conference. And I would again say, like, in a world where Greg Sankey is complaining about saying, like, I don't need to be lectured on doing something for the good of the sport and whatever. The Big 12 and the ACC have done something, I think, pretty altruistic twice now in a week, where, yes, there is the part of this that's like, hey, don't sign on the dotted line that you are half of these conferences. But there is also the fact that, like I just mentioned, for the betterment of the game and everybody involved and fans, like, this is what we want to see. We don't want auto bids. We don't want it to turn into an invitational. Well, what just happened a week ago? For the 2025 playoff, the Big 12 and the ACC literally just basically purely for the greater good of the sport gave up likely automatic buys in the playoff. Like, they gave up any real legitimate shot. The Big 12 certainly did of an automatic buy in the playoff. And the only reason I say the Big 12 certainly did, the ACC maybe not. The ACC is going to have Clemson starting this year in the top 5. They will have enough juice preseason and recently, from a historic standpoint, that they could, I'm sure, earn a bye. I don't think any Big 12 team, even if they go undefeated, maybe if Oklahoma State went unbeaten and smacked Oregon in the non-con, like, maybe, but it'd be tough to get a bye. They're just forfeiting that for the greater good of the sport. And that was the statement coming out of it. And that's what triggered Sankey to make the comments that he did. Now, I was a little frustrated with that because I think, like, look how the SEC just leverages every damn thing that they have. The Big 10 leverages every damn thing that they have. I would prefer that the Big 12 just go ahead and do that, but they didn't because they are trying to make some moves for the greater good of the sport. Seems a little bit naive to me if you think like, hey, we start doing that, we start setting that precedent, Big Ten and SEC will follow. I would say it's naive in light of the comments that we then saw from Greg Sankey about this. I don't need to be lectured about the greater good of the game, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Yeah, I don't think you're going to get that kind of buy-in necessarily from the Big Ten or the SEC, but I guess I can say we should appreciate this in a world where nobody, and I mean nobody, seems to be acting in an altruistic sense for the greater good of the sport, the greater good of this thing that we all care about so deeply. I mean, the Big 12 is doing that. You should appreciate that about your league. The Big 12 is doing that. And the ACC as well, to maybe a slightly lesser extent, but the ACC is doing that too. They are. So thank you. Thank you to them for that.